number of COVID-19 recoveries at 112 since the beginning of the outbreak. But the number of cases is now more than 10,000. As COVID continues to test the capacity of the country's health system, Filipinos now look forward to the possible lifting of the lockdown by next week. Where are we headed and what is the plan? We discuss in this episode of The Chiefs. And welcome to this special edition of The Chiefs. And with me right now is Ami Pamintuan of Philstar. Tayong dalawa lang muna.
Hindi ko alam yung dalawa natin.
Pero anong balita sa inyo? Yung malaki.
Ito nga yung ECQ, di ba? Yung ECQ pinag-uusapan, mukhang matutuloy na nga yata yung GCQ natin.
Sabi naman baka ma-extend. Meron ba
naman balita? Sa iba, yun ang problema. Kasi sabi, dun sa ibang lugar daw, ma-extend. Pero sa iba, ewan ko if that's possible within Metro Manila, pwede bang chap-chapin yun dito sa atin?
Hirap nun. Pwede ba yan? Kasi you live in one place, in one city, but you work in another. So, paano yun? No?
Saka yung mass transport, kung i-revive nila, di ba?
Yes. Pero yung MRT3, ano raw, 153 passengers lang daw ang kaya. Paano yun? Diba? It's almost impossible.
At least may siyang pila.
Hindi rin. They estimate nga raw na 1 to 2 hours ang waiting time.
Hindi, pag nagbalikan yung mga yung nagbalikan na yung mga businesses, pero dahan-dahan din naman eh. Pati nga simbahan daw di ba? Naghahanda na rin sila for new normal. Pagkakaroon daw ng mga foot baths. Naka-regular natin yung face mask. Siyempre, mas madali-dali sa kanila yung physical distancing. Di ba dati nilagyan na nila ng tape eh. So,
pero
pwede na
pero parang ang hirap kasi kanina pinapanood ko yung distribution ng SAP. Tapos makikita mo talagang magkakadikit yung mga beneficiaries, di ba?
Sa pa lang yun.
Imagine kung paano mo i-implement yung pagka-lift na. Tapos mag-MRT, ang hirap kontrolin nun.
Ayan na si Ed.
Challenging.
Ayan na si Ed. Hi, Ed. Good evening.
Ed.
Okay.
Hello. Sorry, medyo ngarag ako ngayon eh.
Bagal yung takbo.
Buti na-lockdown ka ba? O walang traffic?
Na-lockdown ka sa Addition Hills? Nasabit ka ba? Baka naligaw ka.
Wala rin traffic. Talagang
may aso pa.
Okay ba yung connection or should I shift to a different internet?
Okay lang.
Okay lang?
Okay na.
Si Ami naman natin lead eh.
Ikaw ang lead. You're going to welcome. Pinag-uusapan na namin ni Luchi actually umpisa nung topic natin.
Hindi, ikaw.
Ha?
Okay na.
Oo. Ami, ikaw.
Naka-intro na kami, Ed. We're on air.
Anyway, welcome mo na.
Okay na.
Okay na yung okay na yung reception mo. Ipasok na natin yung dalawang guests natin.
No. I mean, ikaw yung intro spiel eh. Si Ami, di ba?
Tapos na.
Ano ka ba? We're on air. We're going to welcome our guests already.
Pagpasensyahan niyo po si Ed Lingao. Late kasi.
Seriously? You mean we're on air? Okay. Mea culpa, mea maxima culpa.
Okay. Muna yung guest natin.
Okay.
Okay, I'd like to apologize for that boo-boo. It's a good thing I wasn't doing something particularly stupid while I was unwittingly on air.
It's part of the fun of quarantine.
Yeah, at least nothing unusually stupid, just the usual stupid. Okay. Of course, welcome to this special edition of The Chiefs. Of course, with us are News 5 Chief Luchi Cruz-Valdes and Philippine Star. Tapos na rin yun?
Yung guest na tayo.
Yung guest na nga introduce mo.
So now I've done something particularly stupid. Okay. So now joining us on stream are two experts from UP who have done an analysis and forecast about the enhanced community quarantine and how these can help the government decide on whether to lift, to end, or to modify the ECQ. You're talking about the ECQ in Metro Manila, Calabarzon, Region 3, Pangasinan, Benguet, Cebu, and Davao, and all those, and Iloilo as well. So, ang daming pa mga ECQ. We have Professor Ranjit of UP Department of Political Science and his colleague, Professor Guido David of the UP Institute of Mathematics. Professors, thank you for joining us. And I apologize. I did not know I was on air already.
Good evening
It's
po.
okay. It's the new normal. Don't worry, Ed. It's the new normal. It happens. We're transitioning to a new format. It happens.
Everything is abnormal.
I really thought that they were just shooting the bull while waiting for us to go on the air. And then I came in and, basta ka dyan. So buti pala ako sinabing ang kababalaghan.
These things happen.
So, Professor Ranjit is one of our regulars, yeah.
Yes.
And of course, there's Professor Guido David, Institute of Mathematics.
Mathematics.
Nako, tribling. Tribling subject yan.
Diyan po kami mahina lahat. Okay.
Well, thank you for joining us, and please do not make our noses bleed tonight. And let's try to drill it down to something that's understandable to a layman. Of course, while still having intelligent conversation. But yeah, let's try to keep that in mind. Kasi minsan masyado mabilis kayo mag-isip eh, lalo na pag mathematics. Medyo naghahabol kami mga mortals. But now, of course, talking about your forecast.
Yeah.
Sige,
Yes,
Prof.
We'll
Ranjit.
make it as simple as possible. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, Prof. Ranjit, sige, maybe we could start off with you. Give us the lowdown of your analysis. How's it looking? Where are we? And how do we compare?
Especially this far.
Good evening to everyone. Yeah, okay. Good evening to everyone. I think first I have to put a disclaimer. We are not the experts. The epidemiologists are the experts here, and maybe we have to always emphasize that and emphasize that to government. We supplement information, but we have to listen to our, health scientists, our epidemiologists in particular. They should be driving policy at this point, and that's important. Because we've been hearing so many pronouncements from government agencies about this and that. And it's important that when we say something, it comes from the expert. So what are we? We're social scientists. We're people just like you, citizens who are interested in making sense of what's happening, and we're part of a broad network of UP faculty who, because we're not teaching at the moment, are very interested in allocating our time, not on K-drama, but on doing research. No? So we've been doing this together with Octa Research, which is funding part of our research. And the UP scholars we have here are quite a number. And we've been doing, this is our 5th forecast. And all of the forecasts are online. And the forecasts are also available at the UP website, so you can easily download it. And so we're here to just share that information. It's important to have that kind of context, that our own opinions are our opinions, and they do not represent the institution, the University of the Philippines, where we come from. So we want to start with that content.
Prof, ito po yung pandemic response team ng UP, di ba? I mean, I have been looking at
Yeah, you see, that's important also. That team, that we have many teams in UP. The biggest team, of course, and who's doing an excellent job, is the UP COVID-19 task force. This is managed by my boss, EVP, Executive Vice President Ted Arbosa, and the lead person who's managing the everyday research is Dr. Mahar Lagmay. Now we are.
But I saw your name in one of the
researchers. Yeah, we're part.
But I saw your name in the report.
Yeah. There were quite a number of people. We help each other, But Ours
Okay.
is an independent study done by UP faculty, and the primary researchers are Professor Guido David and I. And I would like to give it to Guido. You know why? Because guys, for the on your show, and for the first time, because we're releasing it tomorrow, but we are
Okay,
giving you a
great.
scoop of the new
Sige.
data. And it's
Okay.
important that we listen to this first. And the
Sige.
chief modeler here is my colleague, Professor Guido David of Math. So take it away, Gids.
Hi, sir. Yes, what's
Hi,
the
Prof.
top line, kumbaga sa report? How does the
Kinabahan na
top
ako.
line look
Chief
like?
modeler na ang tinawag eh. So kinakabahan na ako.
Successful ba ang ECQ? What's the top line?
Yes, sige. Yeah, good evening, and thank you for having me and Professor Ranjit. Also, we're being assisted by my assistant, si Patricia Aguilos. So anyway, yung about the ECQ, of course, it's working kasi without ECQ, we would have many more COVID-19 cases in the Philippines. So nag-work naman siya. But if you look at the entire nation, if you compute yung R niya, it's still greater than 1. So it means hindi pa siya flattened.
For the benefit of the viewers, can you just define what R is?
Yeah, actually it's defined mathematically. Pero para for your benefit, hindi ko sasabihin in mathematical terms. It's related siya sa rate of transmission. So pag mas mataas yung R, mas mabilis kumalat yung pandemic. Pag mas mababa siya, mas mabilis ma-contain yung pandemic. And pag less than 1 na yung R, usually flattened na siya. So ito yung figure na number of cases in the Philippines, as mentioned kanina. Over 10,000 na. And if you look at this figure, actually hindi pa siya mukhang nagpa-flatten. Mukha siyang nag-increase linearly. Parang tuloy-tuloy lang siyang tumataas, which is a bit scary. Pero this is looking at the overall picture. It helps kasi to look at localized. Kasi iba-iba naman yung rate of spread ng pandemic sa ibang areas of the Philippines. Especially since we're an archipelago. So hindi naman madaling kumalat yung pandemic across oceans. Yes. So, kailangan dyan yung transmissions.
Yes.
So, may mga areas na under GCQ na they're doing well. Meron din namang areas na not doing well. So, nagko-compensate sila, binabawi. Yes.
So,
may isa pa
maybe we should talk about NCR man lang.
Okay.
Have we flattened the curve? Because that's what Usec said earlier. That they're beginning to see a flattening of the curve. Is that correct?
Yung flattening of the curve, well, this one is a number of new cases for each region. So you can see NCR marami siya. Mga 900 plus. Cebu City has almost 600. Yung mga iba mukhang konti, but they're actually spreading quite quickly. So medyo kailangan i-control yun. Especially Zamboanga del Sur and also Cebu. Yung sa NCR, if you look at the aggregate, yung NCR, hindi pa siya flattened. If you look at individual cities, may mga cities which are doing better, and it would seem na nagfa-flatten na sila. And these are Marikina, Mandaluyong,
San Juan,
Pasig, Valenzuela. Ito yung mga noteworthy na medyo bumabagal yung transmissions. But may caveat kami, yung pag-compute ng flattening ng curve, yung R, nakadepend siya sa data. And it needs timely reporting of data. Minsan kasi delayed yung ibang data. Pumapasok sila mga 1 to 2 weeks. So iba pala yung value niya dapat, pero bumababa siya because of, hindi naman siya under-reporting, but late lang talaga na-report. So parang undervalue yung R. Kumbaga, ang compute natin, mas mababa siya, pero mas mataas pala siya talaga kung nag-deal yung data niya.
Professor, I read your report. I'm not sure if it's the latest. Pero ang mukhang medyo optimistic actually ang outlook niya. You're basing it on your data. Ang sabi niyo, it's actually flattening in Metro Manila. And kung hindi, and the ECQ seems to be working, At saka kung hindi tayo nagkaroon ng ECQ, yung about 650 deaths would have been 3,800 and it could be by May 31. Yung ba yung latest report nyo? Am I looking at the latest report?
You know, that's the latest. Well, for tomorrow, that won't be the latest anyway. It was last week.
Ito na yun.
So we do this weekly.
Unreleased
We
pa
do
to
this
eh.
weekly, and
Okay.
we provide this together with DOH and the other groups doing their forecasting and modeling to the IATF. So this is our report last week, and
Yeah.
you know, a week makes a difference in terms of the picture. You know, things are happening now. Okay, to answer your question, is it flattening? Yes. If you look at the long run, yes, it is flattening, but we are not yet on the other side of the curve.
Yes.
Remember, it's a bell-shaped curve. We have to see a reduction. So right now, we are still trying to look at the data, and it doesn't seem that it is flattening the way we want it to be. No, but yes, there is an effect, and there is reduction. Yeah, but there's data is coming in. The picture we see in DOH is not the picture today. It's the picture of at least a week ago, no? Because there is a time lag in providing information.
Testing
People
pati.
get tested. It takes a week to get tested. So,
Right.
guys, what we're getting is a picture of at least a little less than a week old. So we're trying to catch up as far as that data is concerned. That's why we were very careful, Guido and I, to say that models and forecasts have limitations, and the number one limitation is really access to quality data, and that is a work in progress as far as the DOH is concerned, which is the source of all the modelers in the country as far as data. And so that is how we are looking at it. That's how we looked at it last week. And yes, there are places that are doing better in Metro Manila, and there are places where the numbers are escalating. But on the whole, when you look at the curve of the country, yeah, there is some indication of flattening. But given the nature of our archipelago, maybe it's more instructive to look at specific areas like NCR, Calabarzon, where majority of the cases are located, Metro Cebu. Metro Cebu is a very, very instructive case. In the first 2 weeks of this pandemic, back in March, it had an R less than 1, no? 1 or less than 1, and it was doing very well. Then
How is it
suddenly, an outbreak, I should say, in a jail and in one barangay completely changes the picture. From 1 now, it's what, Guido, 3? What?
Wow.
Where is it now, Gids? I don't know where it is now. It's 3?
It's about 3, and the number of cases is increasing very rapidly. So
But
not just Cebu City, but the whole province of Cebu.
And you attribute that to what?
Well, it could be a number of issues, but certainly where they're not handling the quarantine there as efficiently and effectively. It's something we need to take seriously. It could happen to NCR. So our basic, sige, sabihin na namin, no, hindi pa namin nilalabas, pero our basic caution in our report tomorrow is that we caution government with regards to relaxing the ECQ in the areas that are now under ECQ without, number one, adequate data, and number two, without safeguards in place. And for the last 3 forecasts, we've been hammering on particular safeguards. Number one, we need to have mass randomized testing. And we laud government because this week nag-improve from an average of 2,000 to 3,000. Now we're hitting 8,000. It's still less than what we feel should be, but it's at least we're getting there. Number two, effective contact tracing. This is what we can learn from many of the countries that we are observing. Those that are successful in managing this pandemic took testing, tracing, and supportive isolation very seriously. So that is a big problem in the Philippines. We have to say, while there are efforts and initiatives being made, we're not satisfied with the contact tracing initiatives of government. And I think that was dealt with by the president last night. That's why he was asking the DILG to take responsibility for it. But we need an army for that. Third is, of course, isolation, and we're trying very hard to build facilities. Please take in mind, please take in mind that there are something like 20 to 30,000 OFWs coming to the country. We don't know if some of them are affected, but if they are, we need to welcome them, but we need to make sure that they have facilities where they can self-isolate. You know, this is a big thing. We're probably one of the few countries in the world still accepting people from outside. You know, the number one thing about pandemic management, apparently in the literature, is that you close your borders. Nobody comes in. Nobody goes out. But we have to, you know, these are our heroes. We have to welcome them and take care of them. So, you know, our basic argument, Professor David's argument and our own, is that it's too early to relax the ECQ. We need time. We need time to roll out these safeguards. We need time to do mass testing. We need time as researchers to get the data, because the data right now does not support anything. Let's say that the DILG, some people in the DILG are suggesting now we open up certain cities.
Yes, that's right.
It would be a risk. It would be
feasible. It's not even feasible.
The implementation thing is one issue, but just looking at the numbers, it would be catastrophic to open it prematurely.
Professor, you're talking about time. How much time do you think we need? Kasi we've had about 2 months na. And everyone, the business community, so many sectors are already complaining. Di bali na daw magkasakit kesa hindi makapagtrabaho at mawala ng hanap buhay.
How much time of the testing, no?
But, you know, that framing is, you know, it's legitimate. It's a legitimate issue. But, you know, we cannot frame this pandemic as a frame, you know, as between lives and livelihood. You know, it's not that. You know, some people are arguing the cure is, you know, so much more than the illness, bigger than the illness, no? Yeah, but our argument is this: the illness is death. Alam mo yon, nothing is bigger than death, and it's a mathematical certainty that when you start relaxing ECQs, mobility will rise, and mobility, meaning people walking around and all of that, going to work. Mobility is a driver of the infection. Now, you know, epidemiologists all around the world are, you know, there's a manual for this. They have a standard approach to this, and all of them argue that, you know, you open up only if, number one, you have 2 weeks of decline in cases of transmission. I mean, it's a standard, it's playbook of epidemiologists. And if you don't have to believe us because we're not the epidemiologists, but you can just look at the White House, what you call this roadmap or action plan. It's very simple. You have 2 weeks of reduction in transmission. And this is a standard use around the world, even in the successful case of Korea. You have in place testing, tracing, and isolation. Third, you ramp up, scale up, okay, the support, no, to improve the capabilities of your health sector. Get more personnel, get more ventilators, make sure that your hospital is not in crisis mode and has enough beds. What's wrong with that? You know, that's the standard playbook for dealing with a pandemic. And I'm scared, you know, just like you, that we're not looking at this. We're being too flexible about these basic requirements to open up. This is a big issue, by the way, not just here, but also in the US, where it's a federal system, and some states have decided to let go of those, to rethink and you know, reevaluate even those basic parameters. But I think in the Philippines, we have to stick to this, you know, strictly, because of the nature of our density here, the nature of you know, city planning here, the problems of poverty, and you know, the structure of our communities. I think one person can create a big impact. So we have to take care. We have to make sure that we don't end up like Cebu today. Okay, that's what we're trying to say.
Cebu is not the only LGU that's not ready for an easing into a GCQ. There are several others. So, and even within Metro Manila. So are you saying, because I think all these opinions will be taken into consideration, are you saying we're not ready, Metro Manila is not ready for an easing into a GCQ by May 15?
You know, we're getting there, but we have not yet arrived, no? We're doing things now that much better than a month ago, and we have to laud government for that. And I think we have to laud the communities. No, after all, it's not just the frontliners fighting, and they're doing a brave job with very little resource, but the everyday Filipino who's taken this just like you and me, no, very patiently, and very cooperatively, and that's why the ECQ is working. The problem now is if we open up, we will not be able to sustain, okay, the gains made in the last 50 or so, 50 plus days since we started. Now, all we're asking is that the safeguards should be in place. Our
Okay.
position is the safeguards are not in place, and therefore, because they're not in place, regardless of the hour we're in, we will not be able to sustain these numbers. Medyo mababa pa. Unfortunately, may namamatay, pero mababa pa. Now, if we open up prematurely, numbers will escalate. Guido, what's our new catastrophic numbers?
Yes, that
Yeah.
was what I was going to ask. How many tests would you consider representative or a good sample size to make a decision?
Well, actually, na-mention na ni Ranjit na I think we're getting around 8,000 tests a day. If we're actually doing that, I think that's decent. And also yung health facilities natin, we have to make sure hindi sila overloaded. Kasi ang pinaka-worry natin, kung magka-resurgence, saan natin ilalagay sila kung puno pa yung hospital. So we need to have a minimum capacity for yung mga health facilities natin before we can recommend opening up. Para rin naman sa health frontliners natin yun, para hindi sila ma-overburden. Kasi pag na-overburden sila, wala na tayo. Yung forecast namin currently we're forecasting for June 15. If we continue the ECQ and it improves somewhat, we're total number of cases sa NCR will be around 11,000. So yun yung total number of cases by June 15, 11,000 with about 800 deaths. Currently ngayon nasa mga 6,600.
10,000 na tayo, di ba?
Sa whole Philippines yung 10,000. Ito sa NCR lang itong forecast na to. Yes, so
Alright,
from 6,000, yes, ito yung actually pinaka-forecast namin. Yung improving, yan yung pinaka-forecast na. It's more or less flattening if we look at the blue curve. Pero if we lift the ECQ, this is just one possible projection. We could reach about 24,000 cases by June 15, and that will include mga 1,700 deaths. Within mga 1 month lang yan because we are increasing mobility. I mean, yung forecasts are very dependent on yung mga assumptions and yung mga factors, pero this is just one possible forecast that we put forth.
And that's just NCR.
Yes.
Oh, wow. So what kind of, if we're going to lift, and assuming that the number of health facilities remain the same, what is the worst case scenario in terms of breaching protocols pag minodify na at inis na yung ECQ?
It's hard to say. It's hard to answer that. Government has set guidelines for what we call a modified or a community ECQ, community GCQ, no?
Yes.
And many of these guidelines are still a work in progress. I mean, even in that, for that alone, we have to give time for government to fine tune and roll this out. The numbers Guido said are important numbers. Just for NCR alone, 24,000 cases. Now we're only 10,000, and in a month's time we'll have 24,000 if we prematurely relax. We will have more deaths if we prematurely. Now you put that together with the estimate of the economic team, the valuation of extending for another 15 days, possibly close to 100 billion will be lost. But what government will be able to decide in favor of livelihood when so many lives will be lost? And this is just one possibility. And our own models are quite conservative. The other models out there would probably project an even higher transmission rate and a higher number of people dying. Can we afford more people dying? Can we afford the context where more people are sick? So, we're not the only country dealing with this kind of decision. The United States is going through this painful process of decision making at the state level. All over Europe, people have decided to extend their lockdown. Singapore has already decided very early to extend their lockdown till end of May, start of June. So I think that while our case is very different, I think we should be clear about the parameters for deciding when to open. And in our case, it's very, we're suggesting, number one, we only relax if there's a decline. We're seeing a trend in terms of, it looks like a decline in the number of cases. Number two, we have the testing, tracing, and isolation in place. Number three, health facilities and the health capability at the regional, provincial, and city level have been upgraded a bit. We're not asking for a new hospital. We just want the DOH minimums for that particular city met, meaning they have enough beds to cover emergency cases. Remember, we are moving towards dengue season also. So, there are a lot of things we need to think about when we decide. Now, if we decide premature to open, all the gains over the last 50 days, in my view, will be lost. We need some time to educate our public. We need some time for the health system to ramp up, scale up. We need some time for communities, including the businesses, to prepare for a more relaxed quarantine context. And we need government to approximate the sacrifice and hard work of our citizens and our communities. I mean, they've really sacrificed a lot and made the ECQ more or less successful. Government has to approximate that. I know they're doing a lot of work, but we need to work on tracing. For example, in Korea, 95% of cases are traced, and it has been in Turkey one of the best examples, best tools for fighting this virus. If we want the ECQs to be shorter, we need to put in these things: testing, tracing, and isolation. That's the magic formula for shortening ECQs and having less impact on the economy. If we want to open up, that's what we need to scale up.
Well, that's what the government is saying it's been doing, actually, that it's ramping up testing, isolation, contact tracing, and even the private sector is coming in. They're saying they already have 1 million testing kits, or about 1 million. They're approaching the target. What about this proposal? Is it feasible to have a selective kind of easing of the GC? Kasi today, yan na naman ang sinabi ng Malacanang. And government officials are saying na maybe certain areas, even within Metro Manila, they can ease, pero certain cities will be left under ECQ. How feasible is this, given your statistics, given your studies?
Guido, you have some data on Metro Manila.
Yeah.
Yes. Yun nga, like I mentioned earlier, some LGUs in Metro Manila parang flattening the curve. But we have some some problems pa rin. I mean, if we look at it parang flattened na, there is still a delay in some data. So we usually expect mga 15% additional data na nalilate siya. The other thing is yung influx of OFWs na sinabi ni Ranjit. So this could be problematic din for Metro Manila. There are some provinces in Calabarzon and Central Luzon na pwedeng candidates for GCQ, if you may, if they decide on that. Because may mga provinces na walang recent new cases. These include Tarlac and Zambales. Nueva Ecija also. So if they decide na to open these up, of course, subject to reevaluation of the data by next week, check nila if there are new cases in those provinces. Pero these are possible candidates for if you may. Pero yung Metro Manila, it would be very difficult for, in the first place, yung mobility within Metro Manila, it's very concentrated. It's a highly connected network. And this would make it difficult to have one section open. And it would be different for a whole region, and then may mga provinces na open. For example, na GCQ na yung Aurora because they don't have any new cases. It's still isolated. It can remain isolated from other provinces. But it does not seem to be possible, in my opinion, in Metro Manila to have certain areas na open. And especially since hindi pa rin naman sila ganon ka ganda yung performance in terms of new cases. They're still getting new cases. Some of them not as many as the others. Pero sporadic biglang may clustering of cases, may papasok na new cases dito. Right now, wala, pero next week baka meron. So we still need consistency before we can make a decision.
Ironic nga kasi si Mayor Zamora ayaw nga niya mag-lift Pero siya yung nandun sa nangunguna sa nire-recommend na pwede nang mag-lift. So medyo nagkakaroon din sila ng conflict on.
The more we learn about this virus from our own collective experience and the experience of other countries, the more public sector managers begin to realize we need to get the data right so we can get better models and forecasts. And we have to understand our own testing, while it has scaled up and it's laudable that we have done it, it's only been done within this week lang. You guys have to understand the average was around, the standard was around, whole of March was around 1,000 tests. Then it went up to 3,000 and now it's 8,000. Now, you want to ask an example that's of a population similar to Luzon that was successful. A good example would be South Korea.
Yes.
And they were doing twice 15,000 tests a day. And we're not just talking about tests. We're also talking about lab results and turnaround times of less than 4 days. So it's not just the testing; it's also the laboratories, and the DOH is trying its very best, to accredit laboratories who will analyze these tests. No? Remember, you have a test now; it comes a week later. If you didn't isolate, you'd probably be spreading it to everyone in the community because you don't know it. So we need to do all of these things now. Is it too harsh? Is it too strict? I don't know. It takes only one person to create a pandemic, and so or an outbreak, like what happened in Cebu. Now imagine that happening in Metro Manila 2 weeks from now. I don't think our health system will be able to manage it at the moment. We're already working at almost full capacity, something like 60 to 70% in the private hospitals, and around 60% in the public sector hospitals. I don't think we can manage a surge. And remember, there are other illnesses pa.
Yes.
I think the doctors are the people we should talk to, and they should be the one guiding government, not government officials, with their different ideas. It has to be data driven when we make decisions, and this is a very good experience for government because oftentimes government is used to making decisions incrementally based on experience. Now we have a lot of scientists, from the DOH, from University of the Philippines, Manila, who are into this and providing information to the president so he can make the right decision.
Okay. We'll be watching out for your update tomorrow on your continuing study. Professor Guido David and Professor Ranjit. Marami pong salamat.
Thank you for the story.
For joining the Chiefs, And we'll be back. Don't go away. The Chiefs will be...
Stay safe. Thank you.
Welcome back to the Chiefs. And earlier we had with us Professors Ranjit Rai and Guido David of UP. And they said that we needed to talk to an epidemiologist. So he's the one we're going to talk to right now, a leading epidemiologist, Dr. Troy Gepte. Good evening, Doc.
Good evening, Luchi, Ami, and Ed. Good evening.
Doc.
Okay, I'm sure you
Hi,
were
Doc.
listening.
Good evening po.
Hi. O Doc, ano naman ang comment mo dito sa usapin ng lifting ng ECQ?
I think we have all studied the numbers week by week, day by day. Ang problem kasi natin talaga, yung quality of data natin has to be very granular. Ang dilemma is that we don't have that much data and we don't have that kind of a system where we can get that much data. So what we do is we try to generalize across different local government units. We have data for every region, and for each LGU, meron nga din tayong data na parang hindi umaabot hanggang sa barangay. Kaya may tendency that we try to generalize too much and we can't find the actual hotspots. Anyway,
Okay, so
having said that, having said that, parang anong nangyayari, we tend to make a decision for the whole of Metro Manila or the other LGUs that have this kind of a situation sa ECQ. Yes, you were saying?
Doc, nag-iiba-iba pa ba yan? Is the situation different from one city to another?
Yes. As I think Professor Ranjit said kanina, it just takes one person. From all of our experiences in outbreaks from the past, from SARS, MERS, even yung mga diseases like Ebola, H1N1, meningococcemia, it just takes one person and yung transmission niya will be exponential. So yung growth of number of cases talaga will depend dun sa kung ma-prevent natin siya as early as possible. Kaya if we can detect it early, if we have the systems, if we have the mechanisms in place to detect them early, then that's good for us. Yung sinasabi kanina, we need an army of contact tracers to do this. We don't have that. We have what are basically overworked public health workers now, and we really need to level up our capacities, lalo na sa local government units. Some of us are really working dun sa projections, sa numbers, trying to study the data very, very carefully. Some of us are working in the hospitals. Our team of public health doctors and other public health workers are working with the local government units to capacitate them as early as possible so that we can have this kind of readiness so we can detect, we can test, as they were saying, test, trace, and isolate as much as possible. But right now, talagang hirap talaga tayo. The focus has been always on the generalizing of the data. So, ang kailangan natin talaga ngayon is to go down, mag-deep dive tayo into our local government units to look at their health systems and preparedness.
I take it you share the concern of Professors Ranjit and Guido that we might not be ready for the easing of the ECQ by May 15. Tama po ba yung nun?
I echo what their sentiments are. It might be too early. We've just seen some LGUs that are performing better than others in trying to decrease yung rise of the number of new cases. So basically, that's how you say yung flattening of the curve, no? Na medyo nakikita natin that it's not as steep as before. Unfortunately, for the major cities like Quezon City, Manila, maybe the other cities also around us, like in Bacoor, in San Pedro, Laguna, nakikita natin talaga na tumataas siya. And here, itong nakita natin parang trend sa Cebu City. So, in the major urban areas, that's what we are observing, that there is really a trend of increase. And parang unimpeded pa rin. The smaller LGUs, medyo getting better, but we're still not out of the woods kasi magkakatabi kasi yung ating mga LGUs. So, if you were to declare na pwedeng ma-lift na siya from ECQ to GCQ to a general community quarantine, pero yung how they commute, how they travel from one point of Metro Manila to another, that might be a cause for concern. So it won't be practical if we try to have a partial lifting unless we can have a point-to-point system lang where we ensure that where we monitor yung travel of people from one GCQ area to another GCQ area. But right now, we don't have that mechanism yet, not in our LGUs.
So kung
You
kayo
were-
kung kayo ang tatanungin, Doc, how much more time do we need for an ECQ kahit in Metro Manila, saka maybe surrounding yung medyo mataas, yung Laguna, Cavite, Bulacan. Mga
I want to be optimistic, but I also have to look at yung readiness ng ating local government units. For me, just to be kampante, confident tayo dun sa kakayahan ng ating mga local government units down to the level of the barangay to be able to detect cases and to quarantine them and to refer them to hospitals if needed. That will take weeks. So it would be like 2 weeks to maybe a month at least for us to fast track talaga, just so that we can ensure that they are ready.
That's June 15. You're talking about June 15.
Yes. It will be hard kasi syempre yung economy ang iniisip natin, but as Dr. Ranjit said, we need to have that kind of trade-off or balance. If we lift the GCQ and we're not ready, we might have to sacrifice certain lives, and it's hard to conceive of that, kasi nga what we want is for us to have a best outcome, a win-win outcome. But if we were able to recommend sana a good win-win kind of a situation, we try to fast track everything for our LGU preparedness. So we need to work with the national government. Local government has to really work or partner with organizations, private sector, to boost their yung capacity or capability nila. As of now talaga kulang ang ating mga indicators for their readiness.
Earlier, Doc, you were talking about generalizing the data, no?
Yeah.
How do you granularize? Is that the word? What kind of granular data is needed to make a decision?
Ang objective natin kasi is to try to prevent it from growing bigger. What we are doing now kasi is we're trying to deal with cases as they come into the health facilities, into the hospitals. We've always thought of yung frontline as being in the hospitals, but the actual frontline is among our public health responders down to the level of the barangay. If we have that kind of capacity para makapag-detect ng cases, we enumerate them, we know how many cases are coming from the barangays, but we haven't really maximized technology yet. There are a lot of applications that I guess you've seen them advertised. You've seen them endorsed by our interagency task force and our national task force. We have these contact tracing applications that can be used. Some don't really want these or parang nahihirapan sila. They believe that kaya ng mga health officials natin, our barangay health workers, to do the contact tracing, but it's immense work. In fact, I just want to highlight that when we had our SARS outbreak, we had to have 1 week, and it took us like an army of epidemiologists and contact tracers to just do contact tracing for one case. So ganun kahirap talaga siya. The army is like the whole office sa Epidemiology Bureau in the Department of Health, and even our regional and provincial and local government unit epidemiologists. So talagang it's immense work kasi we're looking for highly mobile people here, mga super spreaders natin. With technology, we hope that we can identify them early so that we somehow outpace yung virus. If we detect them early and or somehow predict where they will be, doon natin makikita kung paano natin prevent yung pag-spread niya. It all begins kasi sa yung microcosm of the community or the neighborhood. Ang nakikita natin madalas we speak of data in terms of the region and in the city. Ang kailangan talaga natin tingnan yung sa level of the barangays. And mind you, in the report of Professor Guido and Professor Ranjit, they had a certain list of caveats. One of those caveats was that we are not detecting enough cases in the community, yung mga tinatawag na asymptomatic cases.
Yes.
This may be the driving force really of yung epidemic. Kasi we know that COVID-19 is unlike any other viral disease. It's a disease that it's very infective na even before you really have the symptoms, pwede ka maging pre-symptomatic, and even in some people who have no symptoms, they might really pass on or be a carrier of the disease.
Doc, kayo nga, bigyan nyo nga kami ng tip. Is there any way at all na malalaman ng tao kung carrier siya pero asymptomatic? Is there any sign or meron ba? Kahit pa paano?
We have really relied mainly on symptoms, both clinically in the public health setting, like in MERS and SARS. Kaya natin sinasabi natin yung pag-iingat dun sa nagka-cough, nagsisneeze, or those who might be talking loudly. Pero ngayon, wala talaga. It might be yung harsh or hard breathing, or it might be yung yung normal cause of conversation. Heaven knows, di natin talaga alam. There's so much to learn about COVID-19. Pero we have to have that kind of precaution, or if we want to err on the side of caution, talagang pag-ingatan na lang natin na talaga mag-wear tayo ng mask, magkaroon tayo ng social distancing and all that. We don't really have anything else other than these two things. PCR testing, which is hard kasi it's operator-based, and it has to have been kailangan ma-confirm siya within the laboratory, and not everyone has access to the laboratories. And the other thing is we have rapid antibody diagnostic test kits, which are relatively increasing in number, but we have to follow closely the DOH protocol, the WHO guidelines on how we can use these rapid diagnostic test kits.
Yeah, kasi baka daw mag-false positive, di ba?
Yeah,
Or false negative, which is even
Pwede tayo
worse.
mag-randomized mass testing, Doc. Do we have the capability?
I think we are already some groups or some LGUs that are already doing the surveys, initial surveys.
That's
What
for
will be nice?
asymptomatic, no? That's
Sorry?
for asymptomatic.
For the rapid.
Symptomatic. Yung
Yeah,
random.
for the rapid antibody testing to also
Yeah.
detect the asymptomatics and those who might be symptomatic in the community. So they will do a survey of symptoms, and also they will try to identify based on the rapid diagnostic test kits kung sino yung mga nagpa-positive. If you tuned into what happened early this week sa Senate, they were able to identify a good number of
Yes,
people who were positive for the antibody. That means two things. Na-infect ka na at nagkaroon ka pa ng antibodies. The antibodies might have some form of protection, but we don't really know yet. But it's an indicator that shows that these many people have already been affected. So na-infect na sila, and somehow some of them were
Na-infect na ulit.
asymptomatic or mild. Yeah.
Yeah. Tapos ngayon, Doc, merong nagsasabi, I forget his name, na hindi lang daw 14 days ang incubation. Is there truth to that, or is that a possibility?
I've heard about it, but we're still sticking to the 14 days just for uniformity, until we get more evidence that it might be longer. For some diseases, like for dengue, it's like 3 weeks, medyo matagal. For Ebola, it's also 3 weeks. So it's a range, actually. You can get your symptoms, kunwari, if you have the infection, in as short as 3 days maybe, or 5 days. But some will be talaga maximal up to 14 days. But it's hard to say unless we have good population data. It's not just based on data of patients that we see in the hospital, but it also has to be population-based. The more that we get this kind of granular data from the population or the communities, the better for us, so that we can learn how many are really becoming infected and how many are getting the immunity or yung antibodies natin. The immunity doesn't really equate with yung having the antibodies. It has to be done over time, and that's what the DOH and the WHO has recommended, that we do these kinds of studies periodically in our communities. The faster or the earlier that we do this, that we commit to this, then it's better for us. So I really thank everyone who's been working on the projections, on the estimates, but we really need to get our best minds, our best scientists and doctors down to the level of the barangay, to the community, where we have to do the work.
Yeah.
Okay. Hindi pa siya masyadong optimistic picture, ano? We're all expecting na malilift na by May 15, tapos na. But anyway, Dr. Troy Gepte, public health consultant, thank you for joining the Chiefs, and we'll be back. Don't go away.
Bye, sir.
Thank you. Bye.
And welcome back to the Chiefs. We are now in the final stage of our conversation for this episode. And tonight we are joined by, the ICT Undersecretary Eliseo Rio, one of our favorites back when we were still in the studio. Usec Rio,
Good
thank you for
evening,
joining us.
sir.
My pleasure, and
Mhm.
Ami and Luchi. Thank you for inviting me to your program
Yes.
again.
Good
Again,
evening.
again, and you are one of our favorites. Pero Yusek, teka, just for clarity po, kasi the last we heard, at least publicly heard, was that you submitted your resignation in February this year. What has happened since then?
Well, the president did not accept my resignation. Well, just gave us advice that you are that I'm still needed and to help Secretary Hunasa, no, and that's what I am doing right now.
Mm,
And of course, yes, especially now in this pandemic crisis, we really have to work together.
And it is good to still have you on board. However, of course, I'm sure people are asking and are asking you as well, whether you have or how you have resolved certain issues that you had before you submitted your resignation.
Yes, yes. Some issues is that there were some dysfunctional relationship between the new entries of Secretary Hunasan and we who are the old timers in the ICT, no? But that's now resolved, and we are now working very well together.
Oh,
Mhm.
okay, that's
Well,
good. to hear.
I would like to push that further, but I'll go back to that later, sir, if you don't mind. I have to move on to the topic that we really had in mind for tonight, which is, of course, what we would call the new normal now. Everybody's on internet, everybody's using streaming because they can't see each other in person. What are the plans of government as far as this is concerned? You're talking about infrastructure for information and communications technology.
Yes, Ed. If you will remember, if I can bring you back to the early days of this administration of President Duterte, no? You'll remember that the first thing that he asked for was emergency powers to solve the problem, the traffic problem in EDSA, no?
Yeah.
The ICT is young then. We were the newly created department. And our advocacy then to solve the problem was have people work from home and have students take their classes from home because these are the two main causes of traffic in EDSA. No? And
Mhm.
because of that advocacy, we had now the telecommuting law that was enacted 2 years ago. And that greatly improved our connectivity to our homes, no? To our fixed places, our offices. Um, Before we were all dependent on the mobile network to connect to the internet, no, and that particularly prepared us, in fact, for this pandemic crisis, no. Had this crisis happened 2 3 years ago, we could not even be talking like this right now, no. With almost everybody at home connected to the internet, the infrastructure 2 3 years ago could not handle this kind of traffic, no. But of course, having said that, we still have much room for improvement, no. We could not actually you saw it in this program, no. We still need to improve it, and this is where the ICT has quite done. If you 2019, we put up common towers and common passive telecommunication infrastructure. In fact, we are proud to say that on 2019, for the first time, the BOI reported that the 1 trillion committed investment has been breached. And one half of that, almost one of that, came from the ICT sectors, no? These common towers, the third telco, and of course the passive telecommunication infrastructure, no?
But Usec, if I may, Usec, kasi you did mention nga that we were loosening up traffic a bit on EDSA because of people going online. However, of course, that also generates a lot of traffic online, and we are going to see a lot more traffic online when the school year starts. Almost everybody is
Yes,
going to have to be online. You have so many million students doing their homework, possibly doing
yes.
streaming.
Mm.
Are we ready in terms of infrastructure for something like that? Kasi ako nga
Yes,
ngayon, nahihirapan ako sa streaming.
I know.
yes, Ed. Unlike EDSA, where it will take time to really widen the roads, no, um, widening the bandwidth, no, of the we call the internet highway is much easier. It just needs having the telcos put in direct connectivity to the homes, no. That is one thing that we lack in other countries like Singapore, South Korea, and Japan. 100% of homes are directly connected to the internet, either through fixed wide, or fixed wireless. No, in the Philippines, it's unfortunately only about a little more than 20%. But that was improved, as I have said, when the telecommuting law was enacted. No, because it gave a content. No, in other words, uh, when the telecommuting law was enacted, there was additional income that will come from people uh, working from home, and that is a content, no, a sort of a
Yeah.
killer content. And now that we are all at home, connected, and well, almost everybody's working from home, and soon students, the opening of class sometime August or September, uh, this there is a need to widen the bandwidth, highway, so to speak. And our telcos are doing now, no? Globe and Smart are doing overtime just to um, manage this, this big traffic on internet connectivity.
Usec
So this
Rio,
is the. Go ahead,
Usec
please.
Rio, yes, I'm glad you mentioned that the telcos are working on it, but they're also saying that they need more help. It's actually an old problem of the telcos that they need more help with the local government units. They want the process of permits speeded up, and they want more help in getting right of way issues
Yes,
out of the way in constructing more towers. So talagang
yes,
medyo, in fact, that's what they've been saying for some time now, na kaya yung ibang
Yeah.
kapitbahay natin, mas maganda yung internet speed because they have more towers. Tayo, may problema tayo sa right of way plus the red tape in the LGUs. What are we doing about it to deal with these problems?
Okay. Yes. When we were able to attract the common tower providers, not these are foreign companies. Some are local. That was one of the problems they first encountered. The problem that our incumbent telcos have encountered for more than 20 years. No, 27 local government permits and things like that. So last year, we tied up with ARTA and came up with a timeline, no, on the processing of these permits. No, they should not take more than 7 days, and things have improved somewhat. And the rolling out was a little faster until we were caught again by this pandemic crisis. No, so ARTA is a big help. It's also a new department that is now cutting red tapes, no, and of course some corruption involved in it, because really the local government units are coming up with so many regulations that sometimes the telcos could not put up their towers. In fact, one of the common the one that is laying down now the fiber optic cable, no, all over the country,
Yeah.
complained. He said, in Cambodia, in Vietnam, In 1 year, we could lay out 10,000 kilometers. Here, for the same
bakit
time, can
dito,
only
sir?
lay out only less than 1,000 kilometers, no, because of the
So
right of way
bakit nga ba?
problem.
Bakit nga ba, sir?
Because we have a local government code that gives local government autonomy to manage their collections and things like that, and therefore hindi pantay-pantay eh. Hindi, and this is something that RTI is now working on. And in fact, Secretary Nathan might bring this because right now we are feeling the failure of our rollout, no? The failure, everybody's, the failure of our telecommunication rollout because of these permits. We are feeling that now during this crisis, no?
Yeah.
And we are all suffering from it. While there is an improvement, we are still suffering from it. So maybe now people will realize that they have to reform, and that is, I think, the new norm. We could not really exist now without telecommunication. What we were, doing in the real world before, uh, uh, we found out with this crisis that we can do it more comfortably, more efficiently uh, in the virtual world, no? So that is one thing that has been realized by everybody, I think. And if now they would not improve the speed in rolling out, then people will realize that they can suffer, no, for this.
With our current capability, do you think we're ready for alternative learning? Kasi August 24 is quite close na, no? And considering what we need by way of infrastructure, are we ready for alternative learning, online learning by August 24?
Yes, now we are encouraging the small players, uh, small ISPs. These are the provincial small telecommunication. These are the cable TV operators that can connect homes to the internet, no? By lowering the so-called spectrum users fee, so that all frequencies that has to do with internet, the Wi-Fi frequencies, the IP radio frequencies, can be lowered. No, right now they are being taxed the same way as the frequencies used by our cell phones and things like that. It's quite expensive, no? The big telcos can afford it because they have millions of subscribers. So even if the tax will, let's say, be about 200 to 500 million pesos a year, they just simply distribute that to the hundreds of millions of subscribers that they have. But a small telco with just 10 to 2,000, 20,000 subscribers will find it hard to distribute the even 100 million tax to this in 1 year. So that's why they cannot compete actually with the big telcos. But if we lower the cost of the spectrum users fee just for those frequencies being used in internet, no, this will encourage more small players, small ISPs to connect homes to the internet uh, much faster than the big telcos because they're already in the locality. No, in other words, in the province, sometimes it is the local cable TV operators that connects homes, no, to the internet. But of course, they could not compete with the telcos with the spectrum users fee that we are charging them right now. So that's one thing that Secretary Nasan is doing. Maybe before the end of May, this will be lowered so that now we will have more ISPs and small telcos connecting homes to the internet. And then we also have a program we call digital classrooms and digital workplace, where if, for example, a homeowner could not afford putting up or is still waiting for a connectivity at home, then we are going to repurpose these internet cafes, no, to become digital classrooms, no. So, and if you have internet cafes in every
Pero dapat walang
community,
games. Dapat
yes,
walang games.
Walang Dota.
walang games, yeah, because our internet cafes are games, no. This one will be like classrooms, and in fact, ito po, this will create a new business model, no.
Yeah.
People have money to spend commuting from homes to their place of work to the schools, no.
Yeah.
And the we are spending as per study 3 billion pesos a day in Metro Manila alone, no?
Wow. Yeah.
In the traffic, no. Now that money could go into this
Yes,
to the
yes.
telcos or to the ISPs, to the small
Yeah.
ISPs. So the investor will put up digital classrooms, no.
Right.
So
Yeah.
3 billion pesos a day is big enough to start this type of industry.
Alam ko na kung anong susunod na negosyo ko. Classroom.
Yeah, because right now, who would, for example, if I can work from home, and I think even the government now, no, the telecommuting law is actually for the private sector. It does not include the government. But when this pandemic crisis occurred, our
Yeah.
Civil Service Commission, in fact, adopted the telecommuting law to apply also to the public servants, no? And in fact, right now, the government is working, even if more than 85% of the government employees are working from home. So we are still, and almost all private companies have that kind of
Yes.
percentage also
Yeah.
of their employees working from home, no?
Right. Right. Yes.
And now,
Usec,
go ahead, please.
Usec, if you don't mind, lilihis ako ng konti. Well, actually, hindi naman talaga lilihis kasi actually babalik ako dun sa dun sa una kong tinanong sa inyo. You do know that we've always loved having you on the show because you've always been very frank and you were really hard at work dun sa issue ng third telco. And I'm speaking personally here. I was quite alarmed when you submitted your resignation in February. And to be specific po, among the reasons you gave for your resignation in February was parang you had colleagues, undersecretaries and assistant secretaries who were keeping things from you. Sabi pa nga ninyo in one interview, parang sayang lang binabayad sa inyo ng gobyernong sweldo. And the second reason you gave was that may 400 million na intelligence fund yung DICT that you don't seem to agree with. Sorry po, medyo bumalik ako doon, pero we are of course curious as to how you were able to resolve those two issues.
Well, of course, the working relationship has much improved, no? When we had a heart-to-heart talk with our new boss, for example, and our new co-workers in government, this was resolved, no? As for the confidential fund, that is the prerogative of the secretary, and he has he is responsible in answering for that. And he said, Secretary Nasan said that I'll really answer this if given investigation or so. That resolved everything because there is the presumption of normality in our government, so things were left at that until this pandemic crisis occurred, and therefore the whole department has to work together, no?
So very briefly
for
na lang. Sir, yung third telco, naapektuhan ba yung schedule nila because of COVID?
Well, actually, this has to be answered by NTC because it is NTC that is monitoring their compliance, no? And the NTC is reporting
I-abolish daw
to...
sila eh. I-abolish daw
Ay-
sila ng Kongreso.
Ano yung problema?
Si Benny Abante.
Well, actually, NTC is monitoring this, no? And of course, NTC is reporting to Secretary Honasan. And I think it will be Secretary Honasan who will announce or who will inform the public of any changes or any request from Dito for extension. But as of now, Dito has not requested for any extension,
I see.
even with this pandemic crisis.
All
Sir,
right.
yung last na lang, nasa NTC lang tayo. Can the decisions of the NTC be overturned or be changed by the Secretary of the DICT?
Oo, dating NTC si Usec, ha? Dating NTC yan.
Pwede ba?
Mukhang hindi pwede po yun eh. I mean, because NTC is 50 years older than DICT, no? And they've been existing there before. It was under the Department of Transportation and Communication for that so long a time. And they have, of course, now the capability in doing their work, no? And they have a quasi-judicial function, no? That is not in a power given to the department. So really, NTC could not be, it has to remain because right now, especially in where we are facing the fourth industrial revolution, no? It has to remain as a regulatory body.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you very much po,
Salamat, sir.
Undersecretary Eliseo Rio. Thank you, sir, for joining us. And sir, hindi na kayo nagpapagupit. Humahaba na yung buhok ninyo eh. Napapansin yung mga ganyang bagay.
Bale, bumabata naman kasi humahaba eh. Oh.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Did you notice hindi tayo naputol?
Oo nga.
Matakot sila sa inyo, sir.
Ganun pala yun.
Sige. So,
Salamat, sir.
This is the new normal.
Yes.
Thank you very much again.
Thank you, sir.
Good night. Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Stay safe.
Thank you po.
You
Stay
too.
healthy. Stay at home.
Kayo rin.
Yes, sir. And that will be all for this edition of the Chiefs. We hope what was discussed here will keep the conversation going. I'm at Lingao News.
I'm Mami Pamintuan of the Philippine Star.
And I'm Luchi Cruz-Valdes of News 5, and we are One News.